Good afternoon. Hope everybody's doing good. Brother Andy had asked me if I would do a devotion or Bible study tonight, and while he was on vacation, and so I almost waited to the last minute, locked myself out of uh, my Apple computer from the school, which has all my software to record and all that. So I'm going to do the best that I can with what I have. Um, I want to remember Brother Randall and Miss Pat, Brother Carlee. Uh, remember them. There was somebody else that I had thought of to mention tonight, and Reese and his family. Please continue to remember them in your prayers. Um, Also remember Rollin, Miss Liz Till's brother. Continue to remember him in your prayers. I have some unspokens. I've got an uncle that has had a valve replacement in his heart, and he's not been doing real good. If you would remember him and his family. It's good to be with you tonight. I'm just going to do a quick little devotion out of Matthew chapter 5 and verse 13. And it's talking about being the salt of the earth, and this is nothing new to anybody. I may not take anything that you didn't already know, or I may not even give you a viewpoint of something that you've never seen before, but we do need to remember that we are the salt of the earth, and we have a purpose. Salt is used for numerous things. It's used for preserving. It's used for the enhancement of taste, and I guess that's where I think of tonight about being salty. That the world is all of one flavor. It's all about pleasure. It's all about sin, and we as Christians are to be the salt of the earth, and we're supposed to be something different, something that's not like the world. So remember that. It says, what does it mean to be the salt of the earth? You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its savor, how then shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trodden underfoot. Jesus says that when salt has lost its taste, it's only good to be trampled beneath the feet of men. So the big question is, are we salty? Are we living a way that's separated from the world enough that we're different? That when people see us, they can tell by the way that we carry ourselves, by the way that the attitude that we have, that we're not of this world, so to speak, that we're set apart, that we've been saved by the grace of God, and that His Spirit lives within us, and we are His hands and feet, and that they can see that there's a difference in us by the way that we love. It's very easy to love somebody when they love you. That's just the human part of us. But what's harder is to love somebody that doesn't love us, that doesn't have good things to say about us, that doesn't have our best interest in mind. So a lot of times when I've seen people love uncharacteristically of most human beings, to pray for those, their enemies really, to love people who are unlovable, it has had an impact in my life. I've actually seen, it's almost as if I've seen Jesus at work in their lives. And I want to be like that also. I want to live in such a way that people that I come in contact with can see the love of Christ in me without me telling them that I'm a Christian. Anyway, it says, so the big question, are you salty? It says, here's 3 questions to ask yourself to know whether you're salty or not. One of the simplest things salt does is make people thirsty. I can see which direction this is going. Chemically, salt makes us thirsty because our brain sends a signal to drink water to balance the sodium levels in our blood. And we should be that way, that just by being around us, that people would have the desire to know Jesus. Do we cause them to be thirsty for Christ? It says, while first century folks wouldn't have known the exact physiology of this, they didn't need to, because they experienced the same sensation of being thirsty after eating salty food. For disciples, we can take a cue from our food. Just as our brains create a desire for water, our lives should create a desire in people for the living water of Jesus. Just by them being around us, that we're impacting their lives in a positive way, that they would want what we have, they would want to see things the way that we see things, that they would want to love others like they see us loving others, that they'd want to have compassion for others because they see us having compassion for others. And that doesn't come natural. It's not born. We're not born with the ability to love the way that Jesus tells us to love. That only comes from Him. Loving your enemy. We're not even taught that, or I wasn't. Most people that are outside the church I know aren't, to love your enemies. All right. It says, does your life make people thirsty for Jesus? And that's a good question to ask. By the way we live our lives, do we cause others to want to have a relationship with the Lord? All right. Also, the salt of the earth improves taste. And you know by looking at me that I like to eat, and so I remember when I was a kid, I didn't like salt. I didn't want salt. I couldn't understand why my parents and my grandparents would ruin a good watermelon by putting salt on it. But as I've got older, I don't know why, but I desire the taste of salt on my food. It says the word translated as has lost its taste is moreno in Greek. This literally means cause to become nonsense or make foolish. In this sense, disciples are to act in a way that helps people understand and apply the gospel. Just like a sharp palate identifies particular flavors in a meal, Christians should help people make sense of the gospel's flavor. This means every situation should be viewed through the gospel-centered lens. Everything that we do, all that we say, all of our relationships ought to be viewed through that lens, the gospel-centered lens, and that we should be causing others to want to have that taste of difference. Does your life add grace and enrich the understanding of the gospel in people's lives? And that's totally different than the world. And the way that happens is by the way that we live our lives, that we live differently, that we're not like everybody else, that we're set apart. The salt of the earth preserves and protects. And, back before we had additives, chemicals that they added to food, the way that they would preserve meat would be to add salt to it, which draws the moisture out, and without the moisture, decay can't happen. So the salt of the earth preserves and protects. Finally, salt is a preservative. By dehydrating food, it preserves it from spoiling. An article in the Scientific American explains even more effects of salt. These processes not only prevent spoilage of food, but more importantly serve to inhibit or prevent the growth of foodborne pathogens such as Salmonella, Clostridium, and botulism when properly applied. Salt both preserves and protects. We do this by ensuring our doctrine remains undefiled and undiluted. We don't gather teachers who tell us what we want to hear. How do we protect our lives from the spoils of this world and the devil infiltrating our lives and causing us troubles and breaking down our relationship with the Lord? Is we have a preservative. We don't have preachers and teachers that stand up and tell us that everything's all right, but they point out the dangers that are in our lives. They point out the things that are going to hurt us, kind of like our parents did when we were children. It says, instead, we crave the truth from God's Word itself. We commit to it and are changed by it. The true gospel saves us eternally in this life. Does your life participate in God's preserving and protecting through the gospel? So we as Christians, we have three main things that happens when we're what we should be, and we, so to speak, have a saltiness to us. It makes people thirsty. It makes people want to have a relationship with the Lord as we have it. If we're the kind of example of a Christian that we need to be. The salt of the earth improves the taste. It enhances everything around it. I think about being a Christian, and it just enhances everything in my life. Also, the salt of the earth preserves and it protects us. And that's a way to know that we are where we need to be, is if we can answer those questions. Do we cause people to want to have a relationship with the Lord? Do we improve people's lives in this world by telling them about Christ, showing them love that they can't find in the world? For praying for them and with them through troubled times, to be a shoulder to lean on and be uplifting. Or are we preserving and protecting those that we come in contact with by telling them about the gospel and what Jesus did and how he went to Calvary and how he laid it down his life for us and became our sacrifice, that made a way for us to have a relationship with God again. That is the most important thing, that when we come in contact with people, is that we share the Lord with them, and that we live a way outside the church is to promote these three things. I know this has been short, and I know that it's been may have been scattered, but that's all that I feel like I have. I appreciate your church. I appreciate your love. It was good to be back in church Sunday, and just I don't know, something was different about Sunday. All those Sundays that we spent outside, the messages were good and the songs were good, but there was just something special about being back in the church last Sunday, and we look forward to being able to be back in church with you this Sunday. Continue to remember those that are sick. Like I said, we remember Reese and his family. Remember Brother Randall and his family, and Brother Carly and his family. Remember Brother Andy as they're traveling back. Just keep them in your prayers for safe travel. And I look forward to seeing you Sunday. Love you. And I hope God bless you the rest of the week.